Thanks for coming, and thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. This is a presentation by the Basin Business Advisors program. And my name is Allison Bjorkman. I'm the program manager, so we'll be sharing the stage today. I've muted you guys as you came in, so if you're wondering why that's on, that's kind of how we run the meeting, is that if you're muted, that we don't get a lot of feedback through people's speakers, so that works pretty well. We're recording this webinar as well to be posted on our website after this. So later today it'll be up on our website. If there's things that you want to revisit or you want to share it with somebody else, that's good. And just so you know that we are recording it, so if you want to keep your camera off, you can. If you want to have your camera on, that's okay. Sometimes the video gets a little wobbly, and if that happens, it helps to have videos off, but you're welcome to have your video on. This is a presentation, but we welcome questions throughout as we go. So we'll be watching the chat box for those questions. So if you have something that you'd like to ask, either ask it in the chat box and we'll bring it up, or you can simply say that you have a question and we can unmute you and you can ask your question. So that's a possibility. And we'll have a Q&A, question and answer period after we've done our presentation as well. So I would like you to feel that you can ask questions and that is a bit of a discussion. So if there's something specific to your business that you feel comfortable sharing with the group and you want an answer to, if you're having that question, very likely someone else is thinking that same thing. So feel free to ask questions. And also, we are here for you guys, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Basin Business Advisor program, so how you get in touch with an advisor. We'll be doing some polling through this presentation, so it just helps us to have a bit of information about who we're reaching and also what the businesses are thinking about and some of their main concerns. And yeah, so we'll, again, feel free to add some stuff to the chat box and we'll get a discussion going as well as we go through this. So Allison, if you'd like to go to the next slide, please. So some of you that have joined may not know what the Basin Business Advisor program is, or you've heard about it and you've never really had the background. So there's 5 advisors that serve the Columbia Basin. So we are funded by Columbia Basin Trust, and we're managed by Community Future Central Kootenay. So we have partnership with Community Futures around the Columbia Basin, and that's a really good community connection, and also where our offices are structured. So we serve the whole Columbia Basin, so that's a large area from near the Alberta border over to Trail and Rossland, north through the Nakusp and Revelstoke, all the way up to Valemount and everything in between. So Creston and Cranbrook and Kimberley and Nelson and all those areas. We're a free service, so you can access an advisor free of charge. We're here for you. That is a major bonus of this program. And our main purpose is to do one-to-one advisement with businesses. So we have, right now we're doing everything virtually, so either by phone or by video. When we're a little more open, as we're talking about today, we can come to your business and speak with you there. We can see how you operate, things like that. So this program's been around for many years, and we are here to serve you through this COVID situation as well. So we do have capacity. We have time for more clients right now, so don't be afraid that you're using up time that someone else could use. It's for you. So today we're kind of having a high-level look at this information about how to reopen your business, or some things to be considering when doing so. But I do encourage you to get in touch with an advisor if you have specific questions, or there is things like cash flow or marketing or human resources questions that you want to work through in more detail. That's something you can do with an advisor. So we have a easy application system right on our website That's the simplest way to get in touch with an advisor is fill out our application form on our website and we get back to you. So we're really quick turnaround. So if you need to talk to somebody, you can do that quickly. Allison, if you want to go to the next one. So just to introduce you to our team, I'm the program manager. So my name's Allison Bjorkman, and we have our 5 advisors throughout the region. And I've put them in order here of how they're presenting today, so you can put a face to the name. So Barb Williams is our Central Kootenay Region advisor. She's based in Nelson. Nairi Marsh is our agriculture specialist, and she covers the whole basin. And she's new to our team, and we're really happy to have her. Wendy Morrison is in our Southwest region, based out of Trail. Corey Kanzig is our Southeast region advisor, and he's based out of Cranbrook. And Roberta Cioli is our advisor based in the North, and she's based in the Revelstoke office. So each of these advisors covers an area, but they also work as a team. So they all have specialties, and so depending on the kind of business that you have and the concerns that you have, we may bring in other members of our team, but we tend to kind of go by region first. So Allison, I think if we could put up the first poll, we'd just like to kind of have a bit of an idea of who's here. And if you're already a client of ours, just to see see who's here. So if you would like to vote on that poll, it just give us an idea of who's around. That'd be appreciated. Okay, so Allison, are we doing another poll? I can't remember if we decided we were doing 2.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So thanks for that. A lot of people here for information. Some of our clients are here, which is great. So if you are a client and you haven't reached out to your advisor recently, certainly feel free to do that. If you haven't engaged with the BBA before, this might be a time to consider doing that. Or after today, if you've got some information you want to work through, you can do that too. So we're looking at who's open. So Allison, I think we can share the results of this poll. It just helps us to see kind of what people are thinking about. So some people are closed, some are partially open, and some have never closed. Great. So I think we'll move on and start talking about this process a little bit. And again, we'll watch the chat box if you have questions. If any of the other advisors want to jump in on a topic, that's something that might happen as well. So Barb, if you'd like to get us started. Barb Williams is our Nelson advisor and Central Kootenay.
Hi. So, Allison, if you can switch the slide. So I think that there's been a lot of confusion in general over who had to be closed, who could stay open. But really in the province of BC, the government only mandated that certain businesses had to close. And I think a lot of the misinformation is coming from what's happening in other provinces where non-essential businesses were ordered to close. So the only people that really had to be closed were the restaurants, the bars and the pubs, the casinos, personal service type establishments. And if you couldn't maintain that social distance between your patrons. So, next slide. So a lot of us, I have a business myself, I have a retail store, so we're in the same boat. And a lot of us, we voluntarily chose to close our shops because we wanted to help limit the spread. There certainly was a lack of customers that were around in those first few weeks. It was dead on the streets. Some businesses who chose to remain open were getting a lot of pushback from community members because of the confusion between the different rules in the different provinces. And one really important concern for ourselves was just our own health and safety for remaining open. So technically we could have stayed open, but just due to the mixed feelings, the staff issues, the safety issues, all of those kinds of things, we decided to close. And so now it's a matter of how do we safely reopen? How do we let everybody know that, you know, what measures we're taking and how can we safely do this? What's the next steps? Next slide. So it really does start with a risk assessment around your own business models. And these risk assessments are going to look really different for every model that's out there. So what you have to do is just try to take some time to go through your business, trying to identify different hazards that may exist, who could be potentially harmed by those hazards, what's the likelihood of something happening, and what kind of ramifications could your business face if something did happen. So big concerns, of course, are our staff safety and our customer safety. That's got to be top of mind and our top priority as we're thinking about reopening our business. But there's a whole lot of business concerns that come into the end of it. Most of us have seen significant financial losses in our business. If we're reopening, we have to make sure that we're in compliance of all of the requirements that are out there. We also have to consider what any potential liability that our business might carry is if somebody was to get sick on our property. So that might mean a discussion with your insurance agent. I believe that there will be ongoing business disruptions, that we're not just going to open up and it's going to be back to normal. There's going to be continued disruptions until we get a vaccine or we get some kind of a herd immunity happening. And again, reputation. So if you're going to do this, you've got to do it right. And you've got to put, you know, save your reputation in the community as being somebody who's being responsible during this situation. I think that's all for me. Oh, next slide. I forgot I had to take this one on too. So the guidelines, WorkSafe BC, they're working, working hard to get additional guidelines put out there for specific industries. Not every single industry is covered out there yet, but they are definitely adding updates to that information all along. Specifically speaking to retail businesses, the Retail Council of Canada, and I'll put this in the chat box after I'm done, but the Retail Council of Canada has put together some really good checklists and templates for businesses that are thinking about reopening. They've also got some recovery playbooks, so looking at specifically customer issues or looking at staff issues. So even if you're not in a retail sector, you may find those checklists and templates really helpful. So I'll just post that link up after. Provincial government, they're the official rules as to who can operate and how you need to operate, but they're deferring a lot of the detailed information to WorkSafe BC, but you still should be aware with what the provincial government is saying on the whole. And then something that we just found out about last week, some of your municipalities may have requirements as far as you guys opening and operating safely. So one of the things that I hadn't considered was if you're only limiting your access to your business of one person at a time or one group at a time, what happens to the people that are lined up on city property outside of your store? Okay, so you may need to also check in with your municipal office just to determine if they have any concerns or issues around your reopening as well. So in risk mitigation, we need to know the rules and we need to make sure we're following the rules. And so this is extremely important right now to develop the plans, policies, and procedures that you are going to need going forward. You really need to think about staff training on all of the new protocols and enforcement on all the new protocols. There's a whole bunch of new etiquette that we need to introduce into our workplaces. And there's new policies, especially concerning staff. So thinking about a travel policy, none of us have ever had to have a travel policy in our human resources book before that has dealt with a staff person that goes out of the country. Now when they return home, they must self-isolate for 14 days. They can't return to work as soon as they get back from being out of the country. So these are things that we need to think about. Sick leave policies. There's a lot of places where it's unpaid sick leave. So how is this COVID situation impacting that versus the paid sick leave? I mean, we need to think about these things and we need to make sure that we've got everything written down in writing, policies, and our staff are all familiar with those policies. And now I'm finished.
Thanks, Barb. I think that there's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of information out there, just as there has been since this COVID situation started. And it's a matter of educating yourself, as well as we can also help, as the advisors, help you make sure that you've covered all your bases. So that's another opportunity for you to talk with us. Naira, you want to go ahead?
Okay, so with your plan for your reopening and staff, in advance of your opening, you're going to want to plan your staffing requirements based on your pessimistic, expected, and optimistic scenarios. You may want to consider maybe an even more pessimistic scenario than you had originally imagined, just so you can be prepared and making a plan in advance of your reopening. You want to create your staff recall plan. That may include some considerations such as your staff seniority, objective performance evaluations, the skill sets that you're going to most require as you reopen your business, as well as the order of layoffs as you were closing your business down or reducing staff in response to COVID-19. You will have to consider the Provincial Labor Standards Act and your obligations to staff regarding staff requesting leave of absence due to COVID, and also the obligation to pay severance pay if layoffs go beyond 16 weeks. That measure has been extended due to COVID, but it may be a consideration if you are unable to return to your full staffing levels. Have an open and honest dialogue with your staff in regards to their ability to return to work. People are dealing with family concerns. They may have children that they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with school. Schools are still trying to decide at this point whether or not children will return to work or to school within this school year, or if it's going to be September before children can be back in classroom. You also may have staff that are at higher risk of contracting the illness or having a more serious illness if they do contract it. If you have mature staff or staff with chronic medical conditions, you'll want to be taking all of those things into consideration. And once you've returned to a staffed business, it's essential to continue to communicate with your staff throughout that reopening. Let employees know that you will be updating them regularly, and communicate even if your situation remains unchanged. People may be feeling nervous. The best thing you can possibly do is just to continue to communicate. Follow all the up-to-date provincial health orders, WorkSafe BC recommendations, BC Centre for Disease Control. There will be information available, posters that you can put up. Just keep that line of communication open with your staff and let them know that you are concerned about their safety as well as the safety of your customers, and constantly keep that communication going as you move forward. And yeah, we're available to help you with your staff recall plans or with any of the other human resources aspects as we need to extend maybe, like Barb was saying, the sick leave plans, and maybe some measures in place to help staff with mental health care, with other concerns that may come up as you may have concerned and worried staff. And also, I would suggest you use evidence-based resources for COVID-19. Do not share speculation or misinformation with your staff, as they'll lose confidence and feel unsafe at work. And it's your responsibility to reassure them and have a smooth reopening to the public as we ease forward.
Thanks, Nairi. Allison, if you want to move to the next slide. Communication is a real key piece to this. So Wendy's going to talk to us about that.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all well. This is Wendy Morrison down south, and this is probably one of the trickiest times to be marketing. Mainly because you'll have a psychographic of fear, meaning people will be scared of getting sick, including your staffing and your public. So it will be a twofold communication package. One will be to your staff, being how do they sanitize people going in and out. Down here, Ferrero's has an absolute excellent way of going forward with the COVID. You go in, you get sanitized on your hands before you pick up the carts, and you shop and you go out with an equal sanitization on the way out. So therefore, people are feeling safe, including the staff. So I'd advise training your staff to do so. The other one is to obviously have dots. This again is the staff side. Standing points in your store where people can observe safely. There's nothing worse than having a person come close to you when you're wanting to focus on the goods. So dots amongst the store on the floor are a brilliant way to sort of stay musically dotted. So you can move from one dot safely to another part in the store and have your staff inform the people coming in that this is the process. That's going to be very important. You might also have, again, for staffing, how many limits to clientele are you going to have come in your store? Is it going to be safe to have 6 feet distancing between each member, and how many? There are some interesting stats on the retail outlet about just exactly how many stores can have in a, or clientele you can have in a 700-foot store, for example. So that's going to be very important too, to have your staff feel safe. Another one is to how do you help clients? Do you yell across the room at them? Do you hand them a brochure? Do you mention the process coming in the door? Another very important thing right on your door will be not to enter if you're sick. There's 2 reasons for this. You're covering yourself for liability, that you took duty of care to indicate that you cannot come in the store if you're not well. Another one is if you're limiting numbers, you can have someone at the store front saying that there's now 5 clients in the store, you'll have to wait. So that is on the staffing end. That's going to be very important to making your staff feel comfortable as well as your clientele. Now on the customer side, there's twofold here. Marketing is a misconception that it's only Facebook or outreach. It's presentation, it's comfort for your clientele, it's even display. All of these things are important. So you have to state to these clients when they come in, what's the process? Let them know, let them feel comfortable about it. How am I to be in this store? Oh, follow the spots or the alleyways that we've indicated. Have people greeting them at the door so they don't feel immediately uncomfortable about the situation. And above all, educate your clientele as they come in that you've taken these safety precautions. Now, external marketing is another deal. How do we get the people into my store? Which, by the way, is going to be somewhat complicated because of the fear-based aspect of the COVID infection. Firstly, please tell people you're open for business, whether it be on Facebook, email, posters, or even through group communications. I personally like sandwich boards with color and balloons right on the sidewalk. It lets people know in a friendly manner that you're open for business. This is very important when there's a fear embedded in somebody's mind, to feel comfortable about that. On your email and your marketing, please tell people why they are safe in your business. What precautions are you taking? Much of what I just recommended coming in. Are you limiting the number? We're going to have floor spots for people to safely peruse their products. Now, this may seem like a very basic idea, but in actuality, if people don't feel comfortable to stand and look at your product, they're likely not going to buy, they'll move on. Notices on the door, again, could not be more important. You must let them know the limits of patrons, that we're socially distancing for all people within the store. I would also say that you can have alternative ways of obtaining goods. In other words, if they don't feel comfortable, you can phone in your order, or we'll have our book available on site. Even people are having outdoor displays of their products, in other words, hanging clothes for selection where the people will feel safe and eventually they can come in with a more secure feeling. One of the biggest challenges here, we have seen countries around the world opening their retail and other businesses. People aren't coming. So this is, again, going to have to be an enticing idea to come. Now, there's two states of mind. People want to get out of their house. They've been tied up in here for too long. Or, oh my God, I'm too scared to come in. So entice the buyers along with assuring them of their safety first and foremost. But you might have a sale. Or in my idea of marketing, I would like to see you team up with other stores that are opening. So they might do a circuit, or you might have a 2-for-1 sale with another store. But it is a great way to make your marketing dollars go further if you're sharing the cost with all the people who are open. And it also gives the people more reason to come down if they know 5 stores are open as opposed to 1. Now, there's also different coupons that you can offer. Say a cafe for 10% off, you can have a cafe and 20% discount at our store. These are all very important public relation movements to improve the safety of both your clientele and your staff. Is there any questions out there? Hello? Hello?
There's no questions in the chat yet, Wendy, but yeah, I think that if this would be a place to stop and have a little discussion, if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask anything, you're welcome to. So I think you can see that, and this is very case by case for each business. And so we are taking kind of a high level look at this. So, you know, looking at how other places are reopening as well, but specifically the rules around that in British Columbia, but we can look globally for marketing ideas. Marnie, do you want to unmute yourself and have a question?
Sure. Thank you for hosting this.
You're welcome.
So this has been talked a lot in our personal services industry. There's no guidelines out there yet on WorkSafe, and I've been trying to get through to Interior Health even to just talk to them and see what they're recommending, but we obviously can't in any way be...
So you have a spa?
I have a spa, sorry, yes.
That's
I have
okay.
a spa. So we've been selling our products online. So we've been doing that already and delivering and doing curbside pickups. So that we're keeping as is. We're not going to have people coming in to the spa to buy products. We're just going to stay there for now. But they're saying we can open up our services, and we're seeing such conflicting information, because even now you guys putting this stuff out, you're like, make sure social distancing. And we're like, okay, well, how do we do this when we actually can't?
So there's different levels of businesses reopening. Barb, do you have more information around that? Like there's certain businesses that will be reopening in 2 weeks and then further on. Do we have any timeline on that kind of business, a spa business?
Marnie, do you know that question? Because I think you guys are in the next phase. You're not in the phase 2. Am I wrong on that, or are you guys in the phase 2?
They've said personal services in phase 2, which is shocking us. Well, this is where we're a little unclear, because they say personal services, but they did say like hair salons, the same ones they shut down initially. So barbershops, hair salons, but they're not really clarifying it super clear. So we do have people who we know that are asking us what we're doing and saying, you know, I'm a solo massage therapist. They're saying I can open on May 19th, but can I? And we it's just unclear, and we don't know where to go to get clarity.
Yeah, my only suggestion there is that we're at the mercy of WorkSafe and them getting their publications up to date and out the door.
Yeah.
So in those kinds of industries where they're really high touch, I think I would be holding off until I had really solid guidelines personally. And then the other thing is that some of those industries are opening up in other provinces before us. So I think that we're going to be informed by what happens in other provinces as well. So just keep your ear to the ground and see what comes out.
Thank you, Barb. And my other part of that was just, so am I clear to understand that we really shouldn't be opening till WorkSafe has something released for us? Is that right? When people are asking me, is that
I don't know how you could limit your liability if you did.
I know. Well,
right?
that's it. That's what we don't understand, how they're saying that these can be opening and they haven't released anything for us to follow.
And in the type of work you guys do, you're not 6 feet away from your...
You're not even close to 6 feet away, right? Like we're literally touching you and breathing in your face.
Exactly. So, you know, so I would say I would start searching down PPE, because I think that that's going to be a mandatory thing for your type of businesses to have PPE in place. And then, you know, appointment only, no walk-in, like those are all things that you should start thinking about, looking at the guidelines that exist for other businesses and being as strict as you possibly can with following anything that you're already seeing. That's how I would start to plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Marnie. Natasha, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I'm really quite frustrated and feeling a little paralyzed, because I've made my business in 3 industries where there is literally, like, at least retail, there's kind of a bit of information, but I'm struggling with even listening to the retail stuff. I have a tiny little art and souvenir store, and you know, it's sort of like nothing really makes a lot of sense. Like, I looked at that little square block that you're supposed to figure out whether you're high, medium, or low, and didn't have nice things to say about the person who developed that, because it's not helpful, right? So my retail store, I don't know, there's no point us putting plastic perspex up, and you know, my staff need to talk to the customers, and we normally would only have 1 staff person in the store. You know, we average like $200 or $300 a day on a regular day in sales. And then I have a transport company, which we run shuttles and sardine cans, which to me is just a little germ factory. And there's no way under any of these phases that I can even understand how a taxi company is operating. And then number 3 is, and I've gone to the PT board and there's nothing, like all they're telling me is to renew my license and there's no information. And then number 3 is my adult and kid camps. And, you know, it's like, there's so many levels of like, do I need to have these kids socially distanced? do I have to keep them 6 feet apart on a trail? Or are they saying that I don't need to social distance them? If I don't need to social distance them, can I put them in a vehicle? So I'm literally at the point where all of this stuff is making me just want to close and like give up, because I don't want to spend hours creating policies around stuff that I don't really even understand what I'm creating policies for.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. And it's very difficult, because even if you had very direct guidelines, it doesn't mean that will make sense financially, right? So,
well, if I had guidelines, then I could actually make sense of the financials of it, right? And that's where I'm frustrated, is because I have no information to tell me, and to a certain, like to the next level even. So are people allowed to travel from Vancouver to Roslyn to ride the bike trails? And are they in July going to be allowed to come and ride the Seven Summits Trail, which you cannot do without my bike shuttle? And I don't know if I'm going to be allowed to. So it's not even like, it's not just me. I'm perfectly happy to just take that income out of my income stream for the summer. But in doing so, I could completely disrupt the entire tourism industry. So if there was any sort of, if I could find a clear guideline and say, okay, that's not affordable, I could then tell all of my parents of all the summer camps that it's not affordable for us to run this summer.
Right.
But I can't make those decisions because I'm not even quite sure exactly what decision I'm trying to make. So, there's no social distancing. Like, are we still social distancing or are we not? Are they allowed to be close? So yeah, just, I don't know how to plan for a reopen, because I don't know whether I'm allowed to reopen or what I'm supposed to do. So yeah, clear, yes. So we must social distance, that's great. So then 4 to 5 people in a bike camp outside, they then say that social distancing maybe isn't as important. Or they say that, like, if you've got 4 kids that have already popped their bubbles and they're hanging out together, would they then be able to be together? And like, at what point does the social distancing stop? So any information would be really helpful. There's none.
Yeah, it would. Yes, it would be helpful.
I have parents calling me, telling me how they think I should run my camps. Well, if you just clean the shuttle afterwards, it'll be fine. It's okay. And I'm like, I'm not even sure who I'm scared of. Am I scared of being fined by the government? I'm really scared of being put on Roslyn Talks, to be quite honest with you. That's my biggest terror, is doing the wrong thing and being put on social media as doing it wrong. So.
Well, I think that's, really what you can be doing right now is communicating to your people. I'm trying to figure this out and the guidelines are not there for me. So I'm wanting to do this safely. So it's that you're in that limbo land that's very frustrating. So I absolutely hear that. But the message to your customer base is, I'm not willing to put you at risk until we figure this out, right? Or I'm not willing to put you at risk or my staff at risk. And I think regardless of, how you end up operating, for your customer base to know that that's top of mind is very positive. So as frustrating as it is, I don't think you can make those decisions yet. There isn't enough information.
Okay. So it is, so the risk that I am looking at, like for the transportation, the risk is that if I have people of different bubbles together in that vehicle and somebody is sick, then they're all going to get sick, which to me says that cannot happen.
That cannot happen. Yeah.
It's not going to be viable.
So if you look to the airline industry and just the requirement to wear masks, that's a step that you would have to put in place, I would say, for your business to safely operate. But the bigger question for me is, what is your market? Like, is there going to be enough people to come to even make all this planning worthwhile? So if you don't have parents willing to put their kids in summer camp because they're afraid of the risk.
No, I've got the opposite problem.
Okay, awesome.
I don't feel like and that's my biggest thing, is I don't feel like anybody is actually sitting there going, we're going to get sick. They're actually going, when are you going to open these camps? Because we want to give you our kids. So as I said, I had parents calling me, telling me, oh, we think it'll be fine. Like, just do the camps, right? So I think I'm more on the other side, trying to understand why I shut, why any of this is happening, and having to let the parents who are desperate, as soon as they're allowed to let their kids go, they want to give them to me, right? And so I have to have valid, solid reasons for the choices that I'm making, almost to back up well, I'm making sure that your kids don't get sick.
Yeah. Emily, would you like to bring up your point? So Emily's with Kootenai Rockies Tourism and Tourism Resiliency Group, and she has a comment about how other associations are releasing guidelines.
Yeah, hi Natasha, hi everyone. Yeah, I don't have a clear answer for you, but I'm just thinking, because your shuttle, I think you're closer, yeah, like to a shuttle than a taxi, right? So because you would operate bringing people from town to the trailhead, for instance. So I think it would have some similarities with what the rafting companies are doing with regards to bringing their customers to the launch and then back into town. So I would maybe, wait until they release their guidelines, look at what they're doing, and maybe see if that could be applicable for you, because I know that's a critical part of your business, isn't it? Shuttle.
It is, to a certain extent. Really, honestly, for summer, the shuttle is the 7 summits. We can eliminate the other stuff. It's guiding. As you say, if I don't have customers, then that's not an issue. But I think if they do open up into provincial travel, if nothing else, there's going to be a lot of people looking to come and do biking and that sort of thing. So I just want to know what I can offer them. My only difference between the rafting companies, and I don't think they've figured it out yet, but I was talking to my friend from Endless Adventures, and where I think I differ is that a rafting company is assuming, like, I don't even know how they're going to do a rafting trip, because they have to all be beside each other, but they're going to be beside each other all day. So it makes sense that you would be, like, you are literally, if you've signed up for a rafting trip, you are in for getting COVID if someone on that trip accidentally has it, right? Because there's no way of avoiding it. Whereas with mine, it's a 20-minute car ride. And that's the time when you need to be close to those people. And otherwise, they are strangers that you will never see again. You might pass them on the trail, but there's really no need for you to be with those people for your bike trip. The only need is if you didn't, you and your husband didn't bring 2 cars to Roslyn, so you could shuttle the 100-kilometer difference between the start and the end. So that's where I start to wonder whether, like, if I was doing guided bike trips, I think the rafting works, but I wonder whether, as I say, because it's purely just transportation, so they don't have to sign up to hang out with those people for the whole day.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think maybe one of the directions that the rafting companies might be taking is only one household or one family for a given raft.
Yeah.
So, and again, like, in that perspective, is that something that's viable for you to only have, the member of a household at one time in your shuttle?
Yeah, and that comes to the point where it's like, if you've got 5 people that are all there, well, they probably could have 2 vehicles and they don't need me. So I think you're absolutely right. That's where the viability comes in. And I've been, for the last 8 weeks, I've just been like, someone just tell me whether I can just take the rest of the summer off, or whether there's, I can focus on the retail and make sure the retail store is good. But can I even run the summer camps? I would have just canceled them if it wasn't for the fact that I know that.
Well, the camps, I could see that as being a super critical piece for people to go back to work. So, as we're relaunching the economy, I think that government is working on specific guidelines for that. And I don't know where that's at, but as a mother, I have my fingers crossed that camps will.
Yeah, I really wanted to send the email out that was like, you know what, I quit. We'll see you next year. And then I realized that wasn't going to make your life as a mother of a child that might want to go biking a very happy space. So yeah, and even just things like sanitation, like having kids out for 5 hours a day with no washrooms and no way of washing their hands and nowhere to eat their food safely. That to me says all of those red flags come up, and I'm just not seeing anybody else pulling that stuff.
I think that these are, the people making these regulations are certainly aware of all of these things. So I don't want to cut you off, Natasha, but I'd like to get through the rest of the presentation, and please stay on. We're happy to discuss more. Definitely. So thank you. Okay, Corey, do you want to carry on? Allison, switch the slide, please.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everybody. Natasha, that's a great segue into, this is a new business reality in which we're living in right now, right? So I think it's safe to say, I could leave you with anything today, it is that at the end of this, if you still have questions or you're not even sure, or you want to talk to somebody, to reach out to an advisor. We're here to have one-on-one conversations to speak to your specific situation. And even if there's two like-minded businesses within the same industry, your personal business situation could be different. And so it's really, this information we're providing today is very high level, and I'm sure it can be frustrating at times, but it's very much just, these are some ideas, these are some concepts. Now you need to work through your specific situation, and that's really where the BBA comes in helpful. I know I've had a ton of conversations with clients over the last 8 weeks, and each client is different based on their needs, right? Some are closing their doors, some are advancing and expanding operations. So we're seeing the whole gamut here, and I think it's really important that you spend the time with an advisor to speak specifically to that. With that said, some things we can do. Look, we're going to see changes in consumer behavior. We're already seeing it. We're seeing, the idea of the curbside pickup, curbside delivery, contactless delivery, things of that nature. But we're also seeing, consumer patterns as far as some people, depending on where you are, regionally on the macro level, some people are not spending money, or they're being very tight with their spending. There's just a lot of uncertainty at this point. That being said, as a business, there's things you could do to sort of try to mitigate that. One of them is, if you haven't done so already, reviewing your finances and undergoing what cash flow scenarios. And this is everything from a very pessimistic sort of 60 to 70% reduction in revenue to, the middle sort of 35% reduction to an optimistic maybe 10% or even an increase if you wanted to. But what these cash flow scenarios allow you to do is sort of forecast and provide you with everything from sales targets. They allow you to sort of get that green light, red light as to opening or not opening. Well, if I open at a 60% reduction, I can lower some of my costs. What do I need to make in sales to make this worth my while? Okay, is it reasonable to expect that I can make these sales? Sorry, Allison, just back to the original. I'm talking lots. One more. Thank you. Yeah. So again, a variety of different scenarios you could run in a cash flow forecast. If you haven't done so already and you'd love a template, please reach out to your advisor. We can work with you to create a template that works and then run different scenarios based on that. The nice part about these budget forecastings is, once you have one template, it's pretty easy to just change some numbers, do some forecasting. It really allows you to separate some of the emotion and just let the numbers do some of the talking. Nobody has the answers, unfortunately. We're in this time of uncertainty, but I think it's safe to say that we're not going to get back to what we thought was normal in February for at least the next 12 months. Again, I could be wrong. If anything is proven to me in the last 8 weeks, it's that, decisions we're making today might not be the decisions that in hindsight were the best. So there's a lot of uncertainty. That being said, we need to sort of plan for all that uncertainty, if that makes sense. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a few ways, if you haven't done so already, that you can try to improve your cash flow, right? So is there ways that you can issue invoices faster? Are you offering discounts if you sell on credit? Are you offering discounts to your consumers, like a 2% discount to pay within 10 days? Allows you to get that cash coming in, right? Allows those bills to be paid, allows to start making payroll. Again, very industry specific based on what industry you're in. You can even ask for early or partial upfront payment. People are used to making orders that then have to be manufactured or produced. Well, normally if you don't normally take a deposit, maybe it's something you need to consider now, right? Just sort of de-risking. If you don't already, offering electronic payments, things of that nature that can happen. Take your visa, drop it off at the curbside, contactless sort of thing. All these things that you can get creative with. The flip side of that is talking with your suppliers about how you can, what are the ramifications of this to your supply chain? Are they offering early discounts if you pay early? There's a lot of information, a lot of conversations that you can have with both your consumers and your suppliers, sort of get a better picture of, your business as a whole and where you might be able to take advantage of some opportunities or, close this particular revenue stream, for example. Next slide. And adjust and refine constantly. We are in a huge time of uncertainty. If I could leave you with anything other than contacting your advisor, it's that you constantly need to be reevaluating these processes, right? Today's plan may change. As we all know, we're depending on the news cycle of the day, our lives are impacted greatly. So, constantly being able to adjust, refine, find things where things are working well and build off that momentum. Momentum it's a big thing in business. Once you start feeling that, you get that positive energy moving forward, you can really adjust and refine your processes if you start trying things and you see that they're working. The flip side to that is if things aren't working, you can be quick to make that decision to cut that revenue stream or to adjust accordingly. And nobody likes to talk about this, but we've seen everything from expansion to closing the doors. And right now, if you work through all this process and now is not the time to open, then it's okay to make that decision. Ultimately, you need to look out for yourself as a business owner and the people who depend on you, so that, there could be hard decisions that need to be made. And again, the BBA is here to help you through that whole process. I've had the most value that my clients have had in the last 8 weeks is simply just picking up the phone and having an hour chat about their business. There's a lot of value in having an independent third party discuss things with you without judgment, without emotion involved in it necessarily. So I would really encourage you to reach out to your advisor, take some time, have an hour-long conversation with them, build a plan moving forward. I think you'll see a ton of value in that.
Thanks, Corey. So, Allison, I think that we can, we're certainly open to questions, and, even just expressing yourself, as Natasha did, this is what I'm dealing with. If there's other people on the call that want to bring up their situation, it's helpful for others to hear that. So Allison, if you'd like to put up a couple more polls here, this is helpful for us just to for us also to be addressing what the businesses are looking for. So if you're thinking it, someone else probably is too. So does anybody else want to discuss something? So like Corey was saying, how talk with your advisor, and even in a situation like Natasha's where it's very frustrating and we aren't going to necessarily have answers, but it's to try to work through scenarios so that you have information to work with, so that if you say, well, and Natasha's done this, I'm sure, where it's looking at your how many kids would be coming to a camp and what's my break even on that, to make sure that maybe there's extra expenses involved in social distancing. Maybe there's, situations where you can come up with something that can be done even virtually, or how do you communicate that to your clients so that later they're ready to come back to you. So that's really interesting. So anybody else want to speak up? Denise, I appreciate you putting some comments in the chat box. You're welcome to discuss your situation if you like.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Glenn.
I'm Glenn from Ainsworth Motel. I'm an accommodator. Ainsworth is a very small community. Most of the residents know each other very well. My concern is the community perception of reopening and inviting people from outside the area back into this area, and how my business and my personal, I'm also a resident, any kind of strategy as far as dealing with the locals who, many of them are very afraid. And I know for a fact that whenever it comes to the time for us to reopen and to start inviting people from outside the area here back into the area, there's going to be very big concern, some fear, some warranted, some not, because some have conditions and that maybe put them more at risk. So I thought I'd throw that out there and see if anyone's had any thought about that, opening up their business and how their community, especially like with Ainsworth being so small where everyone knows each other in the area, has anyone had any thoughts about how the opening of their business will impact the local residents, and what your thoughts are on that matter? I'll throw that out there and I'll be happy to listen.
Thank you, Glenn. Wendy, go for it.
Well, Glenn, that's an interesting ongoing problem I've seen on the news a lot. And I have a client up in Crawford Bay who also is in the tourism business, who they're all of a sudden disliking Alberta entries. And it is a matter of public relations to explain to your audience, whether it be in a mail drop or in a community gathering, or however you wish to get your message across, that you're taking the proper precautions. And even to the point of taking temperatures now has been a very strong move in the airline industry, and especially tourism, because you come up from a lot of different places and people are unknown. And of course, there's also a process that could be used as to surveying these new clientele. Have you been sick in the last week? Have you been traveling? Have you had anyone in your family sick? That's going to be important for your own operation as well. But again, if you're taking those precautions, when the time comes, I think you're going to be on the later part of the openings, but when the time comes, you must, before they all start treating these visitors cruelly, make sure your audience or your locals know what precautions you're taking, and that will ease their fear and also welcome the people versus not welcoming them, which is terrible. So I hope that helps. I think it is a proactive approach that needs to be planned and very soon, because you might be opening, say, midsummer, if that. So I think that's my best advice. Make a solid communication plan to both the public and the process you're going to be taking to make sure that you and your community are safe.
Emily's put a link in the chat box there, Glenn, of a webinar about that subject. So if you wanted to, we'll put a copy of that on our resources as well. So we do have a document, a handout for reopening guidelines that we have on our website. And if you'd like that emailed to you, put your email in the chat box and we'll send that out to you as well.
I also want to mention that on the COVID-19 support for community business call tomorrow at 11 o'clock, there is a speaker from WorkSafe BC. He's from the Vancouver area, and so he's definitely speaking about the reopening issues as well, and in terms of WorkSafe. So maybe he will have more information on legislation for some of these unknown questions that we have. But that call's tomorrow at 11, and you could join that call, I think, from the Community Futures Facebook. Is that correct? Or website?
From the website, yeah. Valley Zipline, what would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I thought I'd just maybe input some information here about what's happening with adventure parks in the industry. Right. Obviously, we're not able to operate right now. There is a park that is trying to open. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But I did sit on a roundtable yesterday with 9 other parks in BC just to discuss some of the issues we're facing and the frustrations we're having. We don't really have a set industry that's guiding us through this right now. All of our manufacturers for our equipment are all saying different things. TSBC is to say work with Interior Health. Interior Health is saying you just need to follow their protocols. Following their protocols isn't possible with what we have to do in our businesses, and then as well as trying to clean the equipment. So we're hoping more information is going to come out on Friday, like Alberta just released their sort of outdoor recreation policies. So we're just waiting on that, and then we'll see what they say for us. But right now, off all the parks that I worked with yesterday, we're looking at a late June, early July opening at the earliest. And again, a lot of this has to do with how do we clean our PPE equipment without going out of our manufacturer's policies. So right now, most of them are saying 3 days. Leave equipment 3 days, and then you can use it again. Obviously, that's not an option to be open every 3 days because a lot of us don't have enough equipment to be able to do that. So I just thought I would let everyone know that's sort of where things are at right now when it comes to the adventure industry for those that are involved in the committee that I'm sitting on. So
Thanks very much. Could you put your email in the chat box in case anybody wants to connect with you about that, please?
yeah, you bet.
That'd be great. Thanks. Let me just check if anybody else had something to pipe up about, please feel free. I'm trying to pay attention and read the chat box.
No, that's one of the things that I know in a lot of industries, WorkSafe is looking to the associations for guidance on how to create guidelines for reopening. So I know on the news, there's been barbers and hairdressers are involved with WorkSafe BC trying to figure it out for that industry. So if you have an industry association, make sure you're in contact with them to see what protocols they're aware of or any resources they can send your way.
So Allison McDonald put in the chat box there the link to the roundtable tomorrow where WorkSafe BC will be speaking as well. So that's another chance to hear more about this and speak directly to them if you've got, if you actually want to do that. So yeah, so I think if everybody's okay, had their questions answered, I think we'll wrap up here. So bbaprogram.ca, that's where this recording will live. That's where the document will live. We'll also put the document out to you in email. Sorry, I was just reading Ryan's comment here. To share the survey results. Best practices, I think, is something that we can always be sharing amongst ourselves as well. So as we, you know, within business, you're always in communication with other people in your industry. And sometimes the concern is how come they're doing that? I don't think that's right. I think for yourself, it's really important that you are confident in the way that you're going forward, that you feel that you have covered your liability. I mean, insurance is always a concern. And if you have insurance and you're wondering if it's going to cover you, talk to your insurance agent. But not to just follow blindly, that you actually have reason for doing what you're doing and that you have confidence in how you're handling things and having that come through to your communication with your customers and the public and your staff. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and for the discussion and for being willing to share your frustrations and challenges. It's you know, we're here to help you in whatever way we can. So thanks, everybody.